Have you ever wondered why some people with fewer resources and less talent pass you by as if they've got a secret shortcut to success? It's not because they're smarter, it's not because they're luckier. It's because they've mastered one skill that changes everything: communication. Before they walk into the room already feels their presence. Before they share their idea, people are already leaning in to listen. And here's the truth that might sting a little. Your life right now is a reflection of the level of your communication. Your life will never rise higher than the level of your communication. And that's the part most people miss. You can have $1,000,000 dreams, $1,000,000,000 ideas, a heart full of passion, but if your mouth can't carry the weight of your vision, then your future gets lost in translation. Think about it. God gave you the ability to imagine, to create, to see things others can't see, but He also gave you a mouth to declare it. If you don't declare it with confidence, if you don't express it with clarity, then nobody else will ever catch the picture you see so clearly in your mind. That's why some people with less talent than you seem to keep winning. They learn to communicate in a way that makes others stop, listen, and say, "I believe in that." Your life doesn't change when you just have ideas. It changes when your communication elevates to the level of your vision. That's when doors open, people respond, and opportunities find you. Communication is not just about the words that come out of your mouth. It's about the energy behind those words, the posture that carries them, and the tone that delivers them. You can say the right thing with the wrong energy and still lose the room. You can have the perfect words, but if your body language contradicts them, people will believe your posture before they believe your message. That's why some people command attention without even speaking, because their presence communicates confidence, certainty, and authority. People don't just buy your message, they buy the way you make them feel when you deliver it. If your tone carries doubt, they'll doubt you. If your tone carries conviction, they'll follow you. The truth is, your communication is always preaching a sermon, whether your mouth is open or not, and the question is, does that sermon inspire trust or does it push people away? Your income is tied to your influence, and your influence is tied to your communication. Money doesn't follow effort alone. It follows impact, and impact is created when you can communicate your value in a way that makes people see it, feel it, and believe it. You can grind all day, but if you can't articulate why what you do matters, then people won't pay for it. That's why two people can be in the same business, selling the same product, yet one makes a fortune while the other barely survives. The difference isn't the product, it's the communication. Influence is the invisible currency that unlocks opportunities, partnerships, and sales, and your communication is what prints that currency. The clearer and more compelling your message, the more influence you gain, and the more income naturally follows. Every relationship in your life rises or falls on the strength of your communication. If your marriage feels distant, it's not a love problem. It's a communication problem. If your friendships are shallow, it's not a loyalty problem. It's a communication problem. If your business partnerships keep breaking apart, it's not always about strategy. It's about how you talk, how you listen, and how you connect. People don't leave because the value isn't there. They leave because they don't feel understood. They don't feel heard. They don't feel connected. And that comes back to communication. The truth is, words build bridges or they build walls. Every time you open your mouth, you're either drawing people closer or pushing them further away. If you want deeper love, stronger trust, and lasting loyalty, You've got to master communication, because that's the glue that holds every relationship together. The way you speak to yourself sets the thermostat for your entire life. If you keep telling yourself you're not good enough, not smart enough, not ready yet, then your actions will always shrink to match that conversation. You'll sabotage opportunities because your inner dialogue convinced you you're not worthy of them. But when you upgrade the way you communicate with yourself, everything else begins to shift. You start walking into rooms differently. You start tackling challenges differently, because you've already spoken victory over yourself before the battle even begins. Faith comes by hearing, and that includes what you hear from your own mouth. If your self-talk is small, your life will stay small. But when your words to yourself align with the greatness God placed inside of you, suddenly your belief rises, your confidence rises, and your results rise with it. The world doesn't reward the most talented. It rewards the most compelling communicators. You've seen it happen. Somebody with half the skill, half the knowledge, and half the ability passes right by people who are far more qualified. And the reason is simple. They know how to make people believe in what they're saying. Talent sitting in silence will always lose to average ability that knows how to speak with conviction. Because people don't invest in the best idea, they invest in the clearest and most confidently expressed idea. That's why history is full of brilliant minds who died broke, while others with less brilliance but greater communication skills built empires. The marketplace doesn't just measure what you can do. It measures how well you can communicate what you can do. If your voice doesn't match your value, the world will keep underpaying you, not because you're not worth it, but because you never communicated that you are. Your communication either expands your world or it shrinks it, and most people don't even realize how much power is hidden in their words. Life responds to the sound of your voice. Doors open not just because of what you know, but because of how you express what you know. Opportunities don't just show up because you're talented. They show up because your communication gives your talent visibility. Think about it. How many people are out there with world-changing gifts, with massive potential, with ideas that could impact millions, but the world never hears them because their communication keeps their greatness locked away. They shrink their own world with silence, with timidity, with uncertainty in their voice. And then they look at somebody else, someone less skilled, less talented, maybe even less educated, and wonder, how did they get ahead of me? The answer is simple. They learn to expand their world by expanding their communication. When you speak with clarity, with conviction, and with confidence, you send a signal to the world that says, I am ready. And the world responds. People begin to lean in. Doors you thought were locked begin to crack open. Suddenly, the room you once felt small in begins to feel like it belongs to you. But if your words are shaky, if your tone is uncertain, if your presence communicates doubt, the world hears that signal just as loudly. And it starts shrinking around you. People pass you by. Opportunities bypass you. Not because you don't deserve them, but because your communication never demanded them. Communication expands your world because it multiplies your reach. You can only be in one place at one time, but your words can travel places your body may never go. A single message, spoken with power, can move through a room, through a city, through a nation, and change lives you may never meet. Every great leader, every great entrepreneur, every great movement in history rose on the back of powerful communication. Words that expand worlds. Martin Luther King Jr. stood on the steps in Washington, and his words didn't just describe a dream. They expanded the world for millions of people. His communication opened doors that laws alone couldn't. That's the power of expanding your world through communication. But the opposite is just as true. Some people shrink their world with the words they use every single day. They shrink their world by constantly saying, "I can't," "I'm not ready," "I don't think they'll listen," "What if I fail?" And those words don't just come out of their mouths, they begin to shape their reality. When you keep speaking small, your world keeps getting smaller. When you keep rehearsing failure, you create an atmosphere where success feels impossible. You can't keep talking about lack and expect abundance. You can't keep talking about weakness and expect strength. You can't keep talking about defeat and expect victory. Because every word you speak is planting a seed, and those seeds grow into the environment you live in. Communication is not just about how you talk to others. It's also about how you talk to yourself and how you talk to your future. Some people shrink their world because they keep negotiating with their destiny. They keep telling themselves, "One day I'll get there," instead of speaking with certainty, "Today I begin." They keep saying, "I'll try," instead of saying, "I will." They keep whispering their vision in the dark when they should be declaring it in the light. And as a result, their world stays small. But when you change your communication, you change your atmosphere. When you start declaring possibility, you attract possibility. When you start speaking abundance, you begin to see abundance. When you speak boldly about your vision, the people who can help you start to show up. That's how communication expands your world. Think about the difference between someone who walks into a meeting and says, well, I kinda have this idea, but I'm not sure if it's any good," versus someone who walks in and says, "Here's the vision, here's why it matters, here's how it can change the game." The idea might be the same, but the response won't be the same, because the communication isn't the same. The first person shrinks their world by sowing doubt before they even begin. The second person expands their world by sowing belief before anyone has a chance to object. And here's the kicker. People rarely remember the details of what you said, but they will always remember how your communication made them feel. Did it make them feel confident? Did it make them feel safe? Did it make them feel inspired? Or did it make them feel uncertain, doubtful, disconnected? That feeling is the space your communication creates. And that space is either an expanded world or a shrinking one. Now, some people will say, "But I'm just not naturally good at communication." And here's the truth. It's not about being naturally good. It's about being intentionally clear. Nobody is born a great communicator. Even the most powerful speakers you've ever heard had to practice, had to fail, had to refine, had to keep going until their words carried the weight of their vision. The good news is, communication is a skill, and skills can be learned, practiced, and mastered. The more you grow in your communication, the more your world grows with it. Communication expands your world because it creates access. Imagine having the key to a locked door, but never using it. That's what poor communication is. You've got the key, but you never put it in the lock. But when you learn to communicate with power, it's like you're walking down a hallway of locked doors, and suddenly every lock starts clicking open. That business partner you've been hoping for, they appear because your communication finally made them see the value. That relationship you've been praying for, it strengthens because your communication finally made the other person feel heard. That opportunity you thought was beyond your reach, it shows up because your communication made people realize you're ready. And let's talk about faith for a moment, because even your relationship with God is influenced by communication. Prayer is communication. Faith is communication. The way you talk to God, the way you talk about God, the way you declare the promises of God, that's what determines whether your faith shrinks or expands. When you speak small prayers, you live small lives. When you pray bold prayers and declare bold promises, you begin to see bold results. God Himself created the world with words. He said, "Let there be," and there was. If the Creator of the universe chose to expand existence through communication, what makes you think your words don't carry power too? Communication expands your world by positioning you as a leader. Leadership isn't about titles or positions. It's about influence. And influence is communication. People don't follow you because of what you know. They follow you because of how you communicate what you know. If your communication inspires trust, people will go with you. If your communication breeds doubt, they'll go with someone else. Leadership is not just about direction. It's about the language that makes people believe the direction is worth following. And the stronger your communication, the bigger your world becomes. Because leaders always live in larger worlds than followers. But here's where it gets deeper. Communication doesn't just expand your world. It expands the world of everyone connected to you. When you learn to communicate effectively, you don't just create opportunities for yourself. You create opportunities for your family, your community, your team, and even generations after you. Your words today can set the foundation for somebody else's breakthrough tomorrow. That's why leveling up your communication is not just a personal responsibility. It's a generational responsibility. If your words shrink, your lineage shrinks. If your words expand, your lineage expands. Picture two parents. One constantly tells their child, "You'll never amount to much. Don't dream too big. Stay in your lane." That child grows up in a world that feels small, confined, limited because the communication they received shrunk their imagination. Now picture another parent who says, "You are capable, you are brilliant, you are destined for greatness. The world is waiting on your gift." That child grows up in a world that feels wide, open, and full of possibility because the communication they received expanded their vision. Words don't just shape your world. They shape the worlds of everyone who hears them. And here's what's really powerful. Your communication determines whether your world operates from scarcity or abundance. Scarcity says, "There's not enough for me." Abundance says, "There's more than enough for all of us." Scarcity shrinks your world until it feels like you're fighting for scraps. Abundance expands your world until it feels like you're sharing from overflow. And what determines whether you live in scarcity or abundance is not your bank account, it's your communication. If you keep talking scarcity, you'll keep living in it. If you start speaking abundance, you'll start seeing it. Your communication is the steering wheel of your destiny. Wherever your words go, your life follows. If you keep speaking backward, you'll keep living in the past. If you keep speaking doubt, you'll keep living beneath your potential. But if you start speaking forward, declaring where you're going, speaking faith over your future, and communicating with conviction, you'll find yourself in rooms you never thought you'd enter, with people you never thought you'd meet, doing things you never thought you'd do. That's what it means for communication to expand your world. So the real question isn't, do you want a bigger world? Everybody wants a bigger world. The real question is, are you willing to level up your communication so your world can expand to match your vision? Because at the end of the day, your world will always be the size of your words. Leadership is communication. People don't follow positions, they don't follow titles, they don't follow paychecks, they follow voices. A title might give you authority on paper, but only communication gives you influence in people's hearts. And influence will always outrun authority, because authority is assigned, but influence is earned. You can tell somebody, "Do it because I said so," and they might do it while you're watching, but the moment you leave, that obedience disappears. But if your communication makes them believe, makes them see, makes them feel connected to the vision, then they will follow you whether you're in the room or not. That's leadership, and it's built on the way you communicate. Some people think leadership is about having all the answers, but leadership is really about communicating certainty even when you don't have all the answers. People don't expect you to know everything, but they do expect your voice to inspire confidence in the midst of uncertainty. If your words create fear, you lose followers. If your words create faith, you gain followers. In fact, the greatest leaders in history weren't the ones with the most resources. They were the ones whose communication inspired armies, nations, and generations to believe in a vision bigger than themselves. The reason communication is leadership is because communication transfers belief. You can't lead people beyond what they believe, and they can't believe beyond what you communicate. If your words are unclear, their belief will be weak. If your words are strong, their belief will be unshakable. That's why clarity is more powerful than charisma. Charisma may get people's attention, but clarity keeps their commitment. When your communication paints a vivid picture of the future, people don't just hear your vision, they see themselves in it. And once they see themselves in it, they own it with you. And leadership through communication isn't just about casting vision. It's also about creating alignment. You can have a team full of talented people, but if your communication doesn't align them, they'll work against each other instead of with each other. Miscommunication creates division, clear communication creates unity, and unity multiplies power. That's why one voice can rally hundreds, and one message can fuel movements. Because when communication aligns people, their collective energy expands far beyond what any one individual could achieve. So if you want to lead better, don't just study strategies, don't just chase titles, don't just look for positions, sharpen your communication. Because leadership lives or dies in the words you speak and the way you speak them. The question is, does your communication make people hesitant, or does it make people hungry to move with you? Clarity in communication creates authority. When your words are foggy, people get lost, and when people get lost, they stop following. Confusion always kills momentum. You can have the best product, the most powerful vision, or the biggest opportunity in the world, but if you can't explain it clearly, it loses power. People don't follow what they don't understand. They don't buy into what they can't see. They don't commit to what doesn't make sense. That's why the person who communicates clearly will always outrank the person who communicates vaguely, even if the vague communicator is more talented. Because clarity is authority. Think about it. When someone explains something to you in a way that suddenly makes sense, you automatically see them as an authority on the subject. It's not just that they knew more than you. It's that they made what they knew understandable to you. That's why teachers shape destinies, not because they know everything, but because they communicate knowledge clearly enough for others to grasp it. The clearer you are, the more people trust you. The more people trust you, the more authority you have. Unclear communication breeds hesitation, and hesitation is the enemy of progress. But clear communication breeds confidence, and confidence fuels action. When people are confident in what you've said, they'll move without needing to be pushed. And when people move, momentum builds, and that momentum makes you the natural authority in their eyes. You don't even have to announce it. They gave it to you because your clarity earned it. So every time you open your mouth, you have a choice. Are you going to communicate in a way that creates confusion or in a way that creates clarity? Because one strips away your authority and the other multiplies it. People don't follow noise. They follow a clear sound. And when your message rings clear, it cuts through the doubt, cuts through the distractions, and positions you as the voice worth following. Transformation begins with conversation. The shift you're waiting for doesn't start when your circumstances change. It starts when your language changes. Most people are waiting for life to hand them something new, but life is waiting for them to start speaking something new. Your words set the boundaries of your future. If your conversation is small, your future will stay small. If your conversation is filled with fear, your future will be filled with hesitation. But when your conversation is bold, when it's filled with faith, when it declares possibility even when you don't yet see it, that's when transformation begins to unfold. Every breakthrough in your life will be preceded by a change in conversation. The moment you stop talking like a victim and start talking like a victor, your energy shifts, your actions shift, and your outcomes shift. The moment you stop saying, "I don't know if I can," and start saying, "I will find a way," doors begin to crack open. The moment you stop rehearsing failure and start rehearsing victory, you give yourself permission to step into a new reality. Your external world always bows to your internal conversation. Think about it. Before you ever take a step into a new level, you talk yourself into it, or you talk yourself out of it. Before David ever fought Goliath, he declared, "This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand." That was conversation that created transformation. He didn't wait for victory to speak. He spoke victory, and then the victory showed up. Your words don't just describe your life, they design your life. So if you're serious about leveling up, stop waiting for transformation to come from the outside. Start creating it with the conversations you allow inside. The dialogue you carry in your mind and the dialogue you release into the world are either unlocking your destiny or locking you in your history. And the moment you decide to shift your conversation, you've already started your transformation. So here's the truth you can't ignore. Every step you take toward a bigger life is tied to the words you choose to speak. Your life is not limited by your potential. It's limited by your communication. When you level up your communication, you level up your influence. When you level up your influence, you level up your opportunities. And when you level up your opportunities, you level up your entire life. The question is not, are you capable? You already are. The question is, are you willing to let your words match the weight of your vision? Because the moment your communication rises to the level of your calling, everything you've been chasing will start chasing you.